My sister couldn't fund a lemonade stand, my brother Marcus announced to the conference room full of investors. Stick to your day job. I checked my watch. 2:47 p.m. The investment director entered through the side door, tablet in hand. Mr. Chin, your anonymous $150 million partner is withdrawing effective immediately. Marcus's phone started ringing. The pattern started when I was 8 and Marcus was 12. Dad had gathered us in his office, the one with the mahogany desk and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Marcus, I'm putting you in charge of planning our family vacation this year, he'd said, sliding a credit card across the desk. Real business experience. Budget management. I'd raised my hand. Can I help? This is complicated, Emily. Let your brother handle the adult decisions. Marcus had chosen a resort in Aspen. $5,000 for a week. Dad praised him for months afterward, told everyone at Sunday dinners how Marcus had executive potential. When I was 14, I'd started a small online jewelry business. Nothing major. I'd buy supplies from wholesale distributors, make pieces in my bedroom, sell them on a marketplace site. I'd made $3,000 in 6 months. I'd shown Dad my spreadsheet, tracking every expense and profit margin. He'd glanced at it for maybe 10 seconds. That's nice, sweetheart. Marcus, tell Emily about the internship I got you at Henderson Financial. Starting salary is $85,000 when you graduate. Mom had patted my hand. Maybe you can make Marcus's future wife some nice earrings for their wedding. The third memory cut deepest. I was 19, home for winter break from State University. Marcus had just graduated from Princeton, Dad's alma mater, and was starting at Henderson Financial full-time. The whole extended family came over for a celebration dinner. To Marcus, Dad had raised his glass. On track to make VP before 30. My uncle had turned to me. What are you studying again, Emily? Business administration and computer science. Marcus had laughed. She thinks she's going to be a tech entrepreneur. Watches too many Silicon Valley shows. It's good to have dreams, Mom had said in that tone that meant the opposite. I'd excused myself early. Nobody noticed. What they didn't know, what I'd never told them, was that my little online jewelry thing had evolved. By 20, I wasn't selling earrings anymore. I was consulting for e-commerce businesses, helping them optimize their supply chains and profit margins. By 23, I'd saved $180,000. That's when I met Julian Reeves at a tech networking event in Chicago. He was launching a cybersecurity startup and needed operational infrastructure expertise. I became a silent partner. No publicity, no social media presence, just quarterly board meetings under an LLC name. Dad had asked what I was doing for work around that time. Consulting, I'd said. Like at a firm? Freelance. He'd frowned. You should talk to Marcus. Henderson might have something entry-level. Filing, maybe administrative work. I'd smiled. I'm okay for now. Marcus had gotten engaged when I was 26. Ashley came from money. Her father owned a commercial real estate company. The engagement party had 200 guests. Dad had stood at the microphone, talking about how proud he was to have a son who understood real business and would continue the Chin family legacy of financial success. I'd stood near the back eating shrimp cocktail. Now I was 32. Julian's company, our company, had been acquired by a Fortune 100 tech firm 3 years ago for $340 million. My 44% stake had netted me $149.6 million after taxes. I'd rolled most of it into a private investment fund, specializing in early-stage cybersecurity and infrastructure companies. My family knew none of this. To them, I was still the younger daughter who did something with computers. They thought I worked a mid-level corporate job, maybe making $75,000 a year. I lived in a modest condo downtown, drove a 5-year-old sedan, wore simple clothes. Marcus, meanwhile, had worked his way up to SVP at Henderson Financial. He'd started his own venture capital firm 2 years ago, Chin Capital Ventures. The family treated him like the second coming of Warren Buffett. What Marcus definitely didn't know was that his anonymous $150 million anchor investor, the one who'd made CCV possible, the one whose capital backed 81% of his fund's deals, was me. The text came Tuesday morning at 6:43 a.m. Marcus, family meeting. Dad's office. Saturday 2 p.m. Investor presentation. Professional dress. Me, what's this about? Marcus, big announcement. Be there. I'd arrived at Dad's house Saturday at 1:55 p.m. The driveway was full. Mom's Mercedes, Dad's Lexus, Marcus's Tesla, Ashley's Range Rover, Uncle Tom's BMW. Inside, Dad's office had been transformed into a makeshift conference room. 15 people sat in rented chairs facing a projection screen. I recognized several faces from Marcus's social media. Investors, probably. Dad sat in front, beaming. Mom stood by the refreshments table, playing hostess. Marcus stood by the screen, clicker in hand, wearing a navy Tom Ford suit. Nobody had told me this was an investor pitch. I was wearing black pants and a simple blouse. Professional but not board meeting professional. Emily. Mom's voice had that edge. You're late. It's 1:58. We started networking at 1:30. Marcus, go ahead and begin. I'd taken the last seat in the back row. Marcus clicked to his first slide. Chin Capital Ventures, Q3 Growth Strategy. Thank you all for coming, he'd started. Today I'm presenting CCV's expansion plan. With our current $150 million in managed capital, we're positioned to dominate the emerging tech investment space in the Midwest. Dad had nodded approvingly. Uncle Tom whispered something to the man next to him. Marcus clicked through slides showing portfolio companies, projected returns, market analysis. It was competent work. Not brilliant but solid. As many of you know, Marcus continued, CCV's success is built on the Chin family's three-generation legacy of financial excellence. My father started with nothing and built a fortune through Henderson Financial. I'm following that path. He clicked to a new slide. Family values equals business values. Smart capital allocation runs in our blood. Some people have it. Some don't. His eyes flicked to me for half a second. You can't teach business instinct. A few investors nodded. That's why I'm confident in announcing CCV's Series B internal funding round. We're raising an additional $50 million from qualified family investors and their networks. This is your opportunity to join a proven winner. Dad was practically glowing. Marcus took questions. Someone asked about risk management. Someone else asked about exit strategies. He handled them well enough. Then Gerald Morrison, I recognized him from LinkedIn, senior partner at Morrison & Associates, raised his hand. Marcus, I've reviewed your portfolio. Strong picks. But I notice 81% of your deals are backed by a single anonymous LP. That's significant concentration risk. What happens if that partner withdraws? Marcus hadn't missed a beat. That investor has full confidence in CCV's direction. We have an ironclad 5-year commitment. No withdrawal risk. My phone was in my bag. I knew exactly what that commitment document said. Either party could withdraw with 30 days written notice. Gerald had persisted. But hypothetically. Not a concern, Marcus cut him off. Next question. Another investor asked about competitive advantages. Marcus smiled. Honestly, comes down to expertise. Understanding markets takes years of experience. My team has that. We don't let amateurs near real capital. Like your sister. Uncle Tom called out. A few people laughed. Exactly, Marcus said. Emily, stand up for a second. I stayed seated. Come on, don't be shy. This is educational. I stood slowly, keeping my expression neutral. My sister works in IT. Tech support, data entry, that kind of thing. She's mentioned wanting to invest before. He made air quotes. But this, he gestured to the screen, this is adult business. This requires sophistication. My sister couldn't fund a lemonade stand, he told the room. Stick to your day job. A few more chuckles. Dad was smiling. Ashley whispered something to Mom. I checked my watch. 2:47 p.m. I sat back down and pulled out my phone. 3 taps opened my secure investment app. Another 5 taps navigated to CCV's LP agreement. I selected Request Withdrawal, 30-day notice, and confirmed. The side door opened. David Chin, no relation, different spelling, walked in. He was the investment director at Reichman Private Advisors, the firm that managed my fund's legal and administrative operations. Marcus stopped mid-sentence. Can I help you? David walked directly to Marcus, tablet extended. Mr. Chin, your anonymous $150 million partner is withdrawing effective immediately. All committed capital will be returned within 30 days per your LP Agreement Clause 7.2. The room went completely silent. Marcus's phone started ringing. What Marcus didn't know, what I'd deliberately kept hidden for 7 years, was that I hadn't just gotten lucky with one company. After the Reeves Security acquisition, I'd spent 6 months thinking about what I actually wanted. Not what Dad wanted. Not what would impress Marcus. What I wanted. The answer was simple: I wanted to build things. I wanted to find brilliant people with brilliant ideas and help them succeed. So I'd started my investment fund with $120 million of my own capital. I'd named it Clearview Capital Partners. Deliberately boring, deliberately unmemorable. I'd structured it as a private fund with minimal public footprint. No website beyond a single holding page. No social media. No press releases. I'd made my first investment 9 months later. $8 million into a female-founded logistics optimization startup. They'd been rejected by 37 other investors. I'd seen their pitch deck and known immediately they'd solve a real problem. They'd sold to Amazon 2 years later for $180 million. My return, $31 million. The second investment was $12 million into a cybersecurity insurance company. Return, $43 million. Third investment, $15 million into a supply chain transparency platform. Return, $67 million. By year 3, Clearview Capital Partners was managing $340 million in assets across 17 portfolio companies. My personal net worth had reached $280 million. By year 5, I'd invested in 43 companies. 31 were still operating. 8 had been acquired. 4 had failed, acceptable ratio. My fund's 5-year return was 438%. I'd joined 3 corporate boards, under my real name, but the companies were all private. I'd been invited to speak at 2 closed-door investment conferences. I'd been profiled in Private Equity Weekly under the headline, The Invisible Hand, How One Midwest Investor is Quietly Dominating Early-Stage Tech. Dad didn't read Private Equity Weekly. When Marcus had started Chin Capital Ventures, he'd needed an anchor investor. His pitch had been decent. His deal flow was okay. His terms were acceptable. But more than that, I'd wanted to see if he could actually do it. If he had the instinct he claimed to have. If he was as good as Dad said. I'd committed $150 million through an LLC structure. Summit Ridge Capital Management LLC. Anonymous, untraceable to me without serious digging. For 2 years it had been fine. Marcus made reasonable investments. Nothing spectacular but solid 7% annual returns. He was cautious, which wasn't bad for a first-time fund manager. Then 6 months ago he'd started getting cocky. He'd passed on 3 deals I'd specifically recommended through anonymous market research reports my team sent to his firm. Good deals. One had already been acquired for 8x returns by another fund. He'd started making increasingly risky bets. He'd invested $4 million in his college roommate's crypto startup against my team's advice. It had lost 91% of its value in 4 months. Last month he told Dad at Sunday dinner that he was tired of being limited by conservative partners and was ready to make real moves. I'd started drafting the withdrawal notice that night. What had stopped me was curiosity. I'd wanted to see what real moves meant. Now, sitting in Dad's office watching David hand Marcus the withdrawal document, I had my answer. Real moves meant humiliating your sister in front of investors to look smart. Marcus stared at the tablet. This is a mistake. It's not, David said calmly. The LP submitted formal withdrawal notice at 2:47 p.m. today. Per your agreement, they have the right to immediate withdrawal with return of all committed capital within 30 days. Who? Marcus's face had lost color. Who is the LP? David glanced at me. I'm not authorized to disclose that without their permission. Marcus's phone kept ringing. He declined the call. It immediately started again. This is ridiculous. Ashley stood up. Marcus, call your lawyer. I am his lawyer, Gerald Morrison said slowly. Marcus, you told me that commitment was ironclad. Marcus looked at the tablet again. There must be some negotiation possible. The LP was quite clear, David said. Immediate withdrawal. Dad stood up. Now let's all calm down. I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. Marcus, who is this partner? I don't know. They insisted on anonymity. But they've been completely stable for 2 years, there's no reason. His phone rang again. This time he answered. Marcus Chin. He listened. His face went even paler. No wait, can we? He listened more. Monday at 9. Yes. Fine. He hung up. That was Reichmann Private Advisors General Counsel. They're scheduling a formal withdrawal meeting for Monday. Reichmann? Dad frowned. That's a serious firm. Who do you know there? I don't know anyone there. They're representing the LP. I stood up. David, you have everything you need? Everyone turned to look at me. Yes, Miss Chin, David said. I'll have the complete withdrawal documents ready for your review by Monday at 6 a.m. The room went dead silent. Marcus stared at me. What did he just call you? Miss Chin, David repeated. I'm her investment director. No. Marcus shook his head. That's not possible. I stayed quiet. Emily. Mom's voice was small. What is he talking about? David pulled up a document on his tablet and turned it to face the room. Summit Ridge Capital Management LLC, your $150 million limited partner, is wholly owned by Clearview Capital Partners. Clearview Capital Partners is wholly owned by Emily Chin. Marcus's fork, he'd been eating cheese cubes from the refreshments table earlier, dropped to the floor. That's insane, Ashley said. She works in IT. I'm a consultant, I said quietly. I never said I was in IT. Consultant for who? Dad demanded. For myself. I run Clearview Capital Partners. We manage $340 million in assets across 43 portfolio companies. Uncle Tom laughed. 43, that's ridiculous. David tapped his tablet. I can provide documentation if needed. Ms. Chen's fund has a 5-year return of 438%. She's invested in 17 companies that have subsequently been acquired, including Reeves Security, which sold to Northgate Tech for $340 million in 2022. Ms. Chen's stake in that transaction alone was $149.6 million. Nobody moved. Marcus's face had gone from pale to red. You've been my LP this whole time? For 2 years, yes. Why? I thought you might be good at this. I wanted to support family. Support. His voice cracked. You were spying on me. I was investing in you. There's a difference. Dad stepped forward. Emily, I don't understand. How long have you been doing this? 7 years actively. Longer if you count my consulting work. 7 years, Mom repeated. And you never told us? You never asked. You assumed I had a little job. I let you assume that. Gerald Morrison stood up. Marcus, I need to speak with you privately. This changes the risk profile significantly. 2 other investors stood up as well. One was already on his phone. Marcus grabbed his phone. Emily, we need to talk about this. You can't just. I can, I said. It's in the LP agreement you signed. Clause 7.2. Either party can withdraw with 30 days written notice. But why now? I looked at him directly. You stood in front of investors and told them I couldn't fund a lemonade stand. You used me as an example of someone too stupid for adult business. Did you think I'd keep funding you after that? He opened his mouth. Closed it. The withdrawal is final. You'll have all committed capital returned within 30 days. After that, Chin Capital Ventures is your responsibility. I can't run the fund without that capital, Marcus said quietly. Then you'll need to find other investors. Or adjust your strategy. That's adult business, Marcus. Ashley stepped toward me. You've been lying to this family for years. I haven't lied once, I interrupted. I answered every question honestly. I just didn't volunteer information nobody asked for. David checked his watch. Miss Chin, the board call is in 20 minutes. What board call? Dad asked. I sit on 3 corporate boards, I said. One's meeting this afternoon. 3, you're on 3 boards? Mom looked like she might faint. 2 cybersecurity companies and 1 logistics firm. The logistics company is considering an acquisition offer. They want my input. I picked up my bag. Emily, wait, Dad said. We need to discuss this as a family. I'm available for discussion. I've been available for 7 years. You never wanted to discuss my work before. That's because we didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. You assumed. There's a difference. Gerald Morrison was talking rapidly to another investor near the door. I caught the words complete restructure and untenable position. Marcus sank into a chair. How much of my portfolio did you back? 81% of your deals over 2 years. His hands were shaking. What am I supposed to do? What you've been telling everyone you're capable of doing. Real business. Adult decisions. I walked toward the door. David followed. Emily Chin, Dad said using that tone that used to make me freeze when I was 8. I turned. This is family. You don't just walk away from family. I'm not walking away. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. Mom had tears in her eyes. After everything we've done for you. You sent Marcus to Princeton and me to state school. You gave him a credit card at 12 and told me business was too complicated. You celebrated every job he got and forgot to ask about mine. That's what you did for me. We treated you equally. No, Mom. You didn't. And I was okay with that. I built something anyway. I just don't need to fund Marcus's firm while he humiliates me. I walked out. Behind me, I heard Marcus's phone start ringing again. Immediate consequences. 48 hours. By Monday morning, my phone had 63 missed calls from family members. I didn't return them. At 9 a.m., I attended the formal withdrawal meeting at Reichman Private Advisors' downtown office. Marcus showed up with 2 lawyers. The meeting took 17 minutes. All committed capital will be returned by October 15th, David said. That's 28 days from now. We need at least 90 days, one of Marcus's lawyers said. The agreement specifies 30. We're being generous. This will destroy Chin Capital Ventures. That's Mr. Chen's concern, not Ms. Chen's. Marcus had looked at me across the conference table. Emily, please. We can work something out. I'll apologize publicly. I'll make it right. The decision is final. I'm your brother. You're also a fund manager who violated professional respect. If I kept funding you after that, I'd be a bad investor. By Monday afternoon, 3 of Marcus's other investors had withdrawn their commitments. Smaller amounts, $3M, $5 million, $2 million, but enough to matter. Gerald Morrison called me Tuesday morning. Miss Chin, this is highly irregular, but I wanted to reach out directly. I'm representing several investors who are concerned about CCV's viability. That's not my concern anymore. I understand. I also wanted to apologize. The comment I made on Saturday, like your sister, was inappropriate. I didn't know. Nobody did. That was intentional. May I ask why? Because it was easier. If my family knew, every conversation would be about money. This way I could focus on work. And now they know. So I'll deal with that. By Thursday, word had gotten out in the investment community. I started getting LinkedIn messages. Heard you're the silent force behind CCV. Impressive discretion. Would love to discuss potential LP opportunities with Clearview Capital. Did Marcus Chin really not know? That's legendary. Escalating consequences, week 2 to 3. Marcus called on day 12. I answered. I need to close CCV, he said. No greeting. Without your capital and the other LPs who pulled out, I can't meet my fund obligations. What about the Series B you were pitching? Nobody's investing. Word got out about the withdrawal. They think I'm radioactive. I'm sorry that happened. Are you though? I thought about it. I'm sorry your fund is closing. I'm not sorry I withdrew. Dad says I should sue you. For what? Exercising my contractual rights. He was quiet. He's really angry. He says you embarrassed the family. I withdrew capital from an investment that wasn't meeting my standards. That's business. You did it because I insulted you. Yes. Those 2 things can both be true. He hung up. By week 3, the family dynamics had shifted noticeably. Sunday dinners, which I stopped attending, apparently became tense. Mom texted me daily. Your brother is devastated. Dad won't even talk about you. This is tearing the family apart. I didn't respond. Uncle Tom called. Emily, I need to apologize. The comment I made about you at the presentation was out of line. Okay. I also wanted to ask. I'm developing a commercial property downtown. I know you do investments. Would you be interested in? No. It's a great opportunity. I'm not interested in mixing family and business anymore. But you invested in Marcus. And that's why I'm not doing it again. Final consequences, week 4 to 6. The formal announcement came on day 31. Chin Capital Ventures to cease operations. Midwest Fund cites strategic restructuring as primary limited partner withdraws $150 million commitment. The article mentioned Marcus by name. It mentioned Henderson Financial. It mentioned the Chin family's legacy in finance. It did not mention me. I kept it that way. What did emerge slowly through the investment community grapevine was that Marcus had been over-leveraged on a single LP and failed to maintain professional relationships. 2 headhunters called asking if Marcus could use a reference. I declined. Dad called on day 38. I answered. I need to understand something, he said. When did you become this? Successful. Wealthy. A serious investor. Gradually. Over 7 years. And you never thought to tell me? Would you have believed me? He was quiet. Dad, I showed you my business spreadsheet when I was 14. You looked at it for 10 seconds and changed the subject to Marcus's internship. That was different. It wasn't. I was showing you who I was. You weren't interested. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. Marcus looks up to you, you know. Under all the competition, he admires you. He has an interesting way of showing it. He's young. He made a mistake. He's 36, Dad. That's not young. And publicly humiliating someone who's secretly funding your entire business isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Dad sighed. Your mother wants you to come to Sunday dinner. I don't think that's a good idea. It's family. Family shows up. Family listens. Family doesn't mock you in front of strangers. You want me at dinner? But the dynamic has changed. What does that mean? It means I'm not the daughter who sits in the back anymore. I went to Sunday dinner 6 weeks after the withdrawal. Everyone was there. Marcus, Ashley, Dad, Uncle Tom, Aunt Jennifer. The dining room was quiet when I walked in. Emily, Mom said, "We're so glad you came." I took a seat. Not at the end of the table where I used to sit. In the middle. Marcus was across from me. He looked tired. "How are you?" I asked him. "I've been better. I'm interviewing at Henderson Financial." Dad pulled some strings. "That's good. It's humiliating. But it pays. I'm sorry your fund closed." He met my eyes. "Are you?" "I'm sorry you had to close it." "I'm not sorry I left." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." Dad cleared his throat. "Emily, we've been talking as a family. We'd like to apologize for not seeing you clearly." "Okay. We're proud of what you've built." "Thank you. And we're wondering." He glanced at Mom. "We're wondering if there's a way to move forward. As a family." I set down my water glass. "I have some conditions." "Conditions?" Aunt Jennifer looked confused. "If we're going to be family, really be family, some things need to change." "Like what?" Dad asked. "First, no more comments about my career, my success, or my choices unless you're genuinely curious and willing to listen. That means no dismissive remarks, no belittling, no, 'that's nice, dear' responses." Mom shifted uncomfortably. "Second, if you need something from me, advice, investment help, you ask directly. No manipulation. No guilt. No assuming I'll say yes because we're family." "That's reasonable," Marcus said quietly. "Third, Marcus and I have a professional boundary now. I won't invest in anything he's involved with. That's not punishment. It's protection. For both of us." He nodded. "Fourth, I'm not discussing my net worth, my portfolio, or my investment strategy at family dinners. If you're curious about my work, we can have coffee separately. But Sunday dinners are for family, not business." "Agreed," Dad said. "And fifth, the golden child thing stops. Completely. Marcus is talented. I'm talented. We're different. Both things can be true." The room was silent. "I can work with that," Marcus said. Mom was crying. I didn't realize how much we'd hurt you. I know. That's part of the problem. Can you forgive us? I thought about it. About 8-year-old me being told business was too complicated. About 14-year-old me having my spreadsheet dismissed. About 19-year-old me listening to toasts for Marcus while I stood in the back. About 32-year-old me sitting in this dining room having built something remarkable that nobody had bothered to see. I don't know yet, I said honestly. But I'm willing to try. With boundaries. Dad raised his glass. To new beginnings. And seeing clearly. Everyone raised their glasses. Marcus caught my eye. For what it's worth. What you built is impressive. Really impressive. Thank you. I mean it. $340 million managed 438% returns. That's elite level work. You could have been elite level too. You're good at this. Not as good as you. Different, not worse. You played it safe. I took bigger risks. Neither approach is wrong. He smiled slightly. Dad always said I was the smart one. Dad was wrong about a lot of things. After dinner I helped Mom clear plates. He touched my arm. I really am sorry, Emily. I know. Can I ask, why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to build something that was mine. Not Dad's. Not the Chin family legacy. Mine. And you did. I did. He hugged me. I let her. I left at 9. On the drive home David called. How was dinner? Complicated. But okay. The board approved the logistics acquisition. Your recommendation carried significant weight. Good. That company will do well with the right parent firm. Also, 3 new investment opportunities came in. Should I schedule review meetings? Monday morning. 8 a.m. Confirmed. Ms. Chin. Yes. For what it's worth, what you did took courage. I just withdrew from an investment. You stood up for yourself. With family. That's harder than withdrawing capital. I pulled into my condo building parking garage. Maybe. Thanks, David. I went upstairs. My condo was quiet, deliberately so. Minimal furniture, clean lines, walls covered in art from portfolio companies. On my desk was the framed Private Equity Weekly article, The Invisible Hand. I wasn't invisible anymore. I didn't know yet if that was better or worse. But it was mine. And that was enough.